I was standing in my grandmother's backyard surrounded by 50 relatives I barely knew when my dad put his arm around my shoulder. The summer sun was hot against my neck, and I could hear kids laughing near the pool. Everyone had gathered in the living room for introductions. My brother Troy had just been presented like a trophy-full scholarship to medical school. Then it was my turn. Dad's hand felt heavy on my shoulder as he said those words that would change everything. This is the mistake we kept. The room fell silent for 2 seconds before a few people laughed nervously. I stood there, smile frozen on my face, feeling like I'd been slapped in front of everyone who was supposed to be family. Before I tell you what happened next, I want to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe, because this story is about to show you what happens when someone finally stops accepting the unacceptable. Now, let me take you back to where it all started. I need to give you some context about my family before we get to what happened after that moment. Understanding where I came from will help you see why that comment was not just a bad joke, but the final crack in a foundation that had been crumbling my entire life. I was born when my parents were still in college. An accident. An unplanned pregnancy that derailed their plans and forced them into early parenthood. They got married quickly, dropped out of school for a while, and struggled through those early years. I knew this because they reminded me of it often in small ways. Little comments about how hard things were back then, how much they had to sacrifice. 8 years later, my brother Troy came along. By then, my parents had graduated, gotten stable jobs, and were ready for a child. Troy was wanted. Troy was planned. And the difference in how they treated us was like night and day. His bedroom was twice the size of mine. His birthdays were events with themes and caterers. Mine were pizza and a cake from the grocery store. When Troy made the basketball team, both my parents went to every single game, cheering from the front row. When I had piano recitals, they would show up late, sit in the back, and leave early because they were tired. I told myself for years that I was being sensitive. Maybe they were just busy. Maybe Troy was easier to connect with because he was athletic and outgoing while I was quieter, more artistic. Maybe I was imagining the difference, but deep down, I always felt it. I was the obligation. Troy was the joy. 2 weeks before the family reunion, my mom called me. Her voice had that tone she used when she wanted something but did not want to ask directly. "You should come," she said. "It has been 3 years since the last one. I lived in Portland, Oregon at the time, working as a freelance graphic designer. I had built a decent life for myself, small but mine. I hesitated when she called because family gatherings always left me feeling hollow. But something in me wanted to try again. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe if they saw how well I was doing, they would finally see me as an equal. I spent a week preparing. I bought a nice gift for my grandmother, a cashmere scarf she had mentioned wanting. I picked out a crisp button-down shirt and decent pants. I washed my car until it shined. The drive from Portland to my hometown in Idaho took 6 hours, and I spent most of it rehearsing conversations in my head. I would tell them about the new clients I had landed, the website I designed for a tech startup, how I was finally making good money. Maybe they would be proud. When I arrived at my grandmother's house early that Saturday morning, the place was already buzzing with activity. Folding tables were being set up in the backyard, and the smell of barbecue was starting to fill the air. I parked on the street and grabbed the gift from my passenger seat. My cousin Derek was the first person I saw. He was hauling a cooler from his truck and broke into a grin when he spotted me. "Long time, man," he said, setting down the cooler to give me a quick hug. It felt good, that moment of genuine warmth. Inside, my mom was organizing things in the kitchen with my aunts. She glanced up when I walked in and gave me a quick nod. "Hi, honey. Glad you made it." Then she turned back to arranging platters. No hug, no real acknowledgement, just that quick greeting before she moved on to more important things. I set the gift on the counter and asked if she needed help. She waved me off. "We have got it covered. Go mingle." Troy showed up an hour later with his new girlfriend, a blonde woman named Kelsey, who worked in pharmaceutical sales. The moment they walked in, the energy shifted. Everyone flocked to them. My aunts cooed over Kelsey, asking her about her job and complimenting her dress. My dad clapped Troy on the back and introduced him to relatives with obvious pride in his voice. I stood near the drink table, holding a can of soda, watching the scene unfold like I was watching a movie about someone else's family. I tried to join conversations. I talked to my uncle about his new business. I asked my younger cousins about school. But there was always this feeling of being on the outside, like I was a guest at my own family reunion instead of an actual member. Then my grandmother called everyone together for a family photo. She was particular about these things, always had been. She directed people like a movie director, positioning everyone just right. "Troy, you stand in the middle with Kelsey. Parents on either side." She gestured for me to move, and somehow I ended up on the far edge of the group, partially blocked by my uncle's shoulder. When my Aunt Mary Ann looked at the photo on her phone afterward, she squinted at the screen. "Where is Gage in this photo?" "Oh, I can barely see you there." My dad laughed from across the yard. "That is where he always is. Background noise." People chuckled. I forced myself to laugh too, even though something sharp twisted in my chest. "Just a few more hours," I told myself. "Then you can leave, and you will not have to do this again for another 3 years. Do not be dramatic. Do not make a scene. Just get through it." But I should have left right then. After the photo incident, my grandmother announced it was time for formal introductions. This was her tradition. Since relatives came from different states and some had not seen each other in years, she liked to have each family unit stand up and introduce themselves. It was supposed to be a nice moment, a way to reconnect and celebrate family. My stomach tightened when she started calling people up. My Aunt Laura went first with her 3 kids talking about their new house in Montana and her oldest daughter's acceptance to nursing school. Everyone clapped politely. Then my Uncle James talked about his son's military service. More applause, some thank yous for his service. The room felt warm with appreciation and love. Each family got their moment to shine, to share their accomplishments and be celebrated. Then it was our turn. My dad stood up first, and Troy stood beside him. I remained seated for a moment, not sure if I was supposed to join them. My dad glanced at me and nodded. "Come on up." I walked over my legs, feeling heavy. Troy was in the middle, and I stood slightly to the side. My dad put his arm around Troy first, and his whole face lit up in a way I had seen 1,000 times but never directed at me. "This is Troy, our pride and joy," my dad announced to the room. His voice was full of warmth, the kind of voice you use when you're genuinely bursting with happiness. "He just got accepted to medical school. Full scholarship to Johns Hopkins. We could not be prouder." The room erupted in applause. People stood up to clap. Someone whistled. My grandmother had tears in her eyes. Troy smiled humbly and thanked everyone, and my dad squeezed his shoulder with pure affection. I stood there clapping along, wondering when my moment would come, wondering what my dad would say about me. Then my dad turned and his arm landed on my shoulder. The weight felt different this time, heavier somehow. His face did not have that same light. And this, he said, his tone shifting to something that almost sounded amused. This is the mistake we kept. The room went silent. I felt my heart stop. The words hung in the air like smoke, and I could not breathe. A few people let out uncomfortable laughs, the kind you make when you're not sure if something is a joke or not. My cousin Sarah looked down at her hands. My uncle shifted his weight awkwardly. My dad did not stop there. He kept going, his voice casual, like he was commenting on the weather. Seriously, though, unplanned pregnancy back in college. But, hey, we made it work right. He gave my shoulder a hard pat, the kind that is supposed to be playful, but just felt dismissive. I looked at my mother. She was staring at the floor, her lips pressed into a thin line. She said nothing. Troy had pulled out his phone and was scrolling through it, refusing to make eye contact with me. My grandmother was silent, her face unreadable. No one defended me. No one said, "Hey, that is not funny." No one told my dad to stop. I stood there for what felt like an hour, but was probably only 5 seconds. My face felt hot. My throat closed up. Every eye in the room was on me, some pitying, some amused, some just uncomfortable. And in that moment, something inside me broke. Not broke as in shattered into a million pieces, but broke as in snapped cleanly in half. A clear, decisive break. I smiled. I do not know why I smiled. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was self-preservation. But I smiled and said quietly, "Excuse me." Then I turned and walked out of the living room through the hallway and out the front door. No one followed me at first. I could hear the murmur of voices starting up again behind me, my dad probably making another joke to ease the tension. I got to my car and fumbled with my keys. My hands were shaking, but not from sadness. I was not crying. I was not falling apart. I was calm in a way that felt almost dangerous. I unlocked the door and got in. That is when my Uncle Richard came jogging out. "Hey, Gage," he called. He walked up to my window slightly out of breath. "Your dad is just joking, you know how he is. He has that sense of humor. He did not mean anything by it." I looked at my uncle through the window. This man who had known me my entire life, who had seen the way my parents treated me differently, who had just stood there in silence while I was humiliated. I rolled down the window halfway. "No," I said, my voice steady and cold. "He is not joking, and I am done pretending it is okay." I rolled the window back up before he could respond and started the engine. I pulled away from the curb and drove. 6 hours back to Portland, and I did not cry once. I did not scream. I did not call anyone. I just drove in complete silence, watching the road disappear under my tires, feeling nothing but clarity. When I got home that night, I sat in my small apartment and looked around at my life. My cheap furniture, my cluttered desk with design projects scattered across it, my walls covered in art prints I loved. This was mine. I built this, and I realized something that should have been obvious years ago. I did not owe them anything. I picked up my phone and started blocking numbers. My dad, my mom, Troy. I went through my contacts one by one, blocking aunts, uncles, cousins who had been in that room and said nothing. I deleted Facebook. I deleted Instagram. I went into my email and set up filters so anything from their addresses would go straight to trash. Then I changed my phone number entirely. I walked into a cell phone store the next morning and got a completely new number, and I did not give it to a single family member. 1 week later, I got a job offer from a design agency in Boston that had been courting me for months. They wanted me to work remotely, but asked if I would consider relocating for better collaboration. I had always said no before because I liked Portland. But now, sitting in my apartment with no ties left, I thought, why not? I accepted the offer and told them I would move. Within a month, I had packed everything I owned into my car, sold the furniture I could not take, and drove across the country. I did not leave a forwarding address. I did not tell anyone where I was going except my landlord, and I made sure he knew not to give out my information. When I crossed the state line into Massachusetts, I felt lighter than I had in 28 years. Boston was not what I expected. I thought it would take time to adjust, that I would feel lonely or lost in a new city where I knew no one. But instead, I felt free. I rented a small apartment in Cambridge, a studio with big windows that let in morning light. The design agency set me up with remote work, and within 3 months, I was doing well enough that I started taking on freelance clients again on the side. I met my roommate situation through the agency. One of the senior designers, Julian, mentioned he had a spare bedroom in his place and was looking for someone quiet and responsible. We met for coffee, hit it off immediately, and I moved in a week later. Julian was a software engineer, calm and easygoing. He worked strange hours and respected boundaries. We would cook dinner together, sometimes watch games on weekends, and he never pried into my past. When he asked about my family once, I said simply, "We do not talk anymore," and he nodded and never brought it up again. I joined a running club that met every Saturday morning along the Charles River. The people there became my first real friends in Boston. There was Amanda, a nurse who ran to clear her head after long shifts. There was Marcus, a teacher who had the best playlists. There was Priya, who worked in finance and always brought homemade energy bars. We would run 5 or 6 miles, then grab coffee and talk about nothing important. They knew me as Gage the designer, who was always early and never complained about hills. They did not know about the family reunion. They did not know about the mistake comment. They just knew me as I was now, and that felt incredible. 6 months into living in Boston, I started seeing a therapist. Her name was Dr. Sharon Chen, and she specialized in family trauma. I had never been to therapy before. I always thought it was something other people needed people with real problems. But one night, after a particularly good day, I realized I still flinched when someone mentioned family gatherings. I still felt my chest tighten when I saw posts about Thanksgiving or Christmas. So I made an appointment. Dr. Chen did not try to convince me to reconcile with my family. She did not say, "Blood is thicker than water," or "They probably did not mean it." Instead, she said, "You have the right to protect yourself from people who hurt you, even if they are family, especially if they are family." She helped me understand that leaving was not running away. It was choosing myself for the first time. We worked through years of accumulated hurt, all those small moments that added up to feeling invisible. For the first time in my life, I was healing. Meanwhile, back in Idaho, my family was trying to reach me. I did not know this at the time because I had blocked everything, but I learned later from my cousin Derek. My mom called my old number 40 times in the first week after I left. When it went to a disconnected message, she panicked. My dad sent emails to my old address which I had set to autofilter into trash without reading. Troy tried to message me on Facebook, but my account had been deleted. My grandmother was worried sick asking every relative if they had heard from me. Derek was the only person I stayed in loose contact with. He had my new number because I trusted him. He had always been kind to me even when we were kids. A few months after I moved, he called me. "Man, they are losing their minds trying to find you," he said. "Your mom is convinced something happened to you." I could hear the strain in his voice. He was caught in the middle. I told him the truth. I am fine. I am better than fine. But I do not want them to know where I am. Can you respect that? There was a long pause. "Yeah," he said finally. "I can respect that. But they are really worried." "I know," I said, "but they should have thought about that before." He did not argue, just said, "I will not tell them. But if you ever need anything, call me." I appreciated that. 2 years passed. 2 full years of building a life I loved. My freelance business grew so much that I quit the agency job and went full-time on my own. I was making more money than I ever had. I moved out of Julian's place and bought my own one-bedroom condo. I started dating someone, a woman named Sloan, who worked as a copywriter. She was smart and funny and never made me feel small. Life was good. And then, on a random Saturday afternoon in early October, everything shifted. I had just gotten back from my usual run. I was sweaty and tired in the best way, keys in hand, about to unlock my door. That is when I saw him. A man in a gray suit standing in the hallway of my building, looking at a piece of paper in his hand, then looking at my door number. He looked up when he heard my footsteps. "Are you Gage Harrison?" he asked. I stopped. My full name. No one in Boston knew my last name except my landlord and a few official contacts. "Who is asking?" I said, keeping my distance. "My name is Frank Dalton," he said. He reached into his jacket, and I tensed, but he just pulled out a business card. "I am a private investigator. Your family hired me to find you." I felt like I had been punched. They hired a private investigator. They tracked me down across the entire country after 2 years of silence. "I am fine," I said, my voice hard. "You can tell them that. Now, please leave." Frank held up his hands. "I am just doing my job. Your family is very worried about you. Your grandmother is sick. They want to see you." I felt a pang at the mention of my grandmother, but I pushed it down. "How did you find me?" I demanded. "That information is private." "I am good at my job," he said simply. "Look, I do not know what happened between you and your family, and it is not my business. But they paid me to find you and give you this." He pulled out a thick envelope from his jacket. "It is from your father. Please, just take it. Then I will leave." I stared at the envelope like it was a bomb. "I do not want it," I said. Frank set it down on the floor in front of my door. "It is yours if you change your mind," he said. He handed me his card. "If you want to send a message back, you can reach me at this number." Then he walked away, his shoes echoing down the hallway. I stood there for a long time after he left, staring at that envelope. Finally, I picked it up, unlocked my door, and went inside. I tossed it on the kitchen counter and took a shower, trying to wash away the feeling of being found, of having my privacy invaded. But even after I was clean and dressed, the envelope sat there taunting me. I waited until evening to open it. I made dinner, first ate, slowly, tried to pretend it did not matter. But curiosity and old wounds are a powerful combination. Finally, I sat down at my kitchen table, turned on the lamp, and opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter 3 pages long in my dad's messy scrawl. I started reading. The letter was everything I expected and nothing I wanted. It started with, "We have been so worried. We did not know if you were alive or dead." Then it moved into, "What happened at the reunion, that was just a joke. You know, I did not mean anything by it. I've always had a rough sense of humor. You are too sensitive about things." There was a paragraph about my grandmother being diagnosed with heart problems and how it would mean the world to her to see me before she passed. And then, near the end, the line that made my jaw clench. "We gave you a good life. We put a roof over your head, sent you to college. The least you can do is come home and be there for your family when we need you." I read the letter twice, and with each reading I felt less. Not more anger, not more hurt, just less. A numbness that came from finally seeing clearly. There was no real apology, no acknowledgement of what they had done, just defensiveness, guilt, tripping, and a demand that I fall back in line. They still did not get it. After 2 years, after hiring a private investigator, after all of this, they still did not understand. I sat at that table for a long time, the letter spread out in front of me. Then I opened my laptop and started typing. I wrote an email not to my father directly, but to Frank Dalton, with instructions to forward it. I needed to say this, not for them, but for myself. The email was long. I wrote about being called a mistake in front of 50 people, but I also wrote about the 28 years that led up to that moment. I listed specific examples. The time they forgot my 16th birthday because they were busy planning Troy's 8th birthday party. The time I won a regional art competition and they did not even put my award on the fridge, but Troy's participation ribbons covered the entire wall. The time I graduated college and they left early to beat traffic. I wrote it all out calmly and factually, not with anger, but with truth. Then I wrote what you did at the reunion was not just a joke. It was a confirmation of what I always knew. I was the obligation. Troy was the joy. And I am done living in a family that never valued me. I have built a life here. I have real friends. I am happy. I do not need a family that never saw me as equal. If Grandma wants to reach out directly, she can. I am attaching my phone number for her only, but I will not come to any family gathering where you and Mom are present. This is not about forgiveness or revenge. This is about protecting my peace. Do not send anyone else to find me. Respect my boundary, or I will take legal action. I attached my new phone number with a note that it was only for my grandmother. Then I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The moment it went through, I felt something lift. I had finally said everything I needed to say. A week after I sent that email, my phone rang with an unknown Idaho number. I almost did not answer, but something told me to pick up. "Gage, sweetheart, is that you?" It was my grandmother's voice, shaky and older than I remembered. "Grandma," I said, and my throat tightened. I had not realized how much I missed her until I heard her voice. We talked for over an hour. She cried. I did not. She apologized for not standing up for me at the reunion, for not seeing how badly I had been treated over the years. I did not defend what your father said she told me. I read the email you sent through that investigator. I had no idea it was that bad, honey. I'm so sorry. I should have done more. I told her I appreciated that, and I meant it. She did not try to pressure me to reconcile with my parents. She did not make excuses for them. She just said, "I love you, and I want to be in your life if you will let me." "I will," I said, "but on my terms." We started talking every Sunday after that. She would call in the morning and we would catch up on life. She told me about her garden, about the neighbor's new puppy, about her book club. I told her about work, about Sloan, about my running club. It was the kind of relationship I had always wanted with someone in my family. Simple, honest, no strings attached. 3 months after Frank found me, I got a text from Troy. It was late at night, and I almost deleted it without reading. But curiosity got the better of me. "Can we talk?" it said. Not about them. About us. I stared at the message for 10 minutes before replying. Video call tomorrow, 2 p.m. my time. The next day, Troy's face appeared on my screen. He looked older, more tired than I remembered. "Hey," he said. "Hey," I replied. We sat in awkward silence for a moment before he spoke again. "I never realized they treated you so differently until you left. I was the golden child, and I just accepted it. I never thought about what that meant for you. I'm sorry I did not stand up for you at the reunion. I should have. I appreciated the honesty, but I was cautious. You have had 2 years to realize that," I said. Troy nodded. "I know. After you disappeared, I started noticing things. How they talk about you. How they blame you for abandoning the family instead of looking at what they did. I started going to therapy a few months ago. I'm trying to be better." That surprised me. Therapy, Troy, the golden child in therapy. "Yeah," he said with a half smile. "Turns out being the favorite comes with its own problems. Lots of pressure, lots of expectations. But that is my stuff to work through, not yours. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. And I want to be your brother if you will let me. Not their son talking to their other son, but just us, on our own terms." I thought about it. Part of me wanted to say no to keep the walls up and protect myself. But another part of me remembered the kid Troy used to be before he became the golden child. The little brother who followed me around wanting to play. Maybe that person was still in there somewhere. "Maybe," I said finally, "but it has to be separate from them. I cannot have a relationship with you if it means being around them." "I understand," Troy said. "We can figure it out." We did not become close overnight. It took months of slow, careful conversations. But gradually, we built something new. A brotherhood that was not based on competition or comparison, but on mutual respect. We texted sometimes. We called every few weeks. He never pushed me to come home, and I never asked him to choose sides. It was enough. 4 years have passed since that family reunion. 4 years since my dad called me the mistake they kept in front of 50 people. 4 years since I walked out and rebuilt my life from scratch. I am 32 now. I still live in Boston. I bought a condo in a nice neighborhood. My freelance design business has grown so much that I hired 2 employees last year. Sloan and I got engaged 6 months ago. We are planning a small wedding next spring, just close friends. No one from my old family is invited except my grandmother and Troy. My grandmother flew out to visit me twice this year. We walked around Boston together, ate at nice restaurants, and she finally got to see the life I built. She met Sloan and told me she was proud of me, not for what I accomplished, but for having the courage to choose myself. That meant everything. Troy and I text regularly now. He finished medical school and is doing his residency in Seattle. We visited each other once, and it was good. Different. But good. He has his own life now, separate from our parents, and I respect that. We are rebuilding what was broken, piece by piece. As for my parents, I have not spoken to them since that day. Not a single word in 4 years. I heard through my grandmother that they were angry at first, then hurt, then confused. They could not understand why I would not just forgive and forget. My dad apparently told people I was being dramatic and holding a grudge. My mom cried a lot in the beginning, but eventually stopped asking about me. They moved on with their lives, and I moved on with mine. I do not hate them. That is the surprising part. I thought I would carry anger forever, but I do not. I feel nothing when I think about them now. Not love, not hate, just nothing. And that is okay. Some people think you have to forgive to heal, but I learned that is not true. You can heal by simply removing yourself from the source of pain and building something better. I learned that you do not owe loyalty to people who hurt you, even if they share your blood. I learned that leaving is not running away. It is choosing yourself. I learned that the best revenge is not anger or bitterness. It is building a life so good that you do not need their validation anymore. And I learned that some relationships cannot be fixed, and that is okay. Letting go is also a form of love for yourself. I am not the mistake they kept anymore. I am Gage. I am whole. I am happy. And I did that on my own terms. If you are in a situation where people make you feel small, remember this. You have the power to walk away. It will not be easy. People will tell you that family is everything, that you should forgive, that you are being too sensitive. But only you know what you have endured. Only you know when enough is enough. 2 years later, 4 years later, 10 years later, you will look back and realize that leaving was the best decision you ever made. Choose yourself. You are worth it. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family? Or have you been in a situation where you had to choose your peace over people's expectations? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel for more real-life stories about choosing yourself and finding your path. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it today. Thank you so much for listening to my story, and I hope it reminds you that you deserve to be valued, respected, and loved exactly as you are. Take care of yourselves, and remember your peace matters more than anyone's comfort.